The planet Varela 7 was a small green world tucked deep within the borders of the outer spiral rich in forests, rivers, and life, but poor in protection. It had no navy, no standing armies, and no political influence in the Galactic Council. For most of its peaceful life, the people of Varela lived quietly, growing crops, studying the stars, and believing they were too far from the conflicts of the core worlds to ever matter. That belief shattered the moment the sky tore open. Without warning, dozens of angular warships fell into orbit like burning knives. Invaders were called the Dravari, a brutal raider race with no flags and no mercy. They moved system to system, looting colonies and enslaving anything that breathed. No one had seen them in years, and now they were here, their engines dark, their weapons glowing red above a world that had no way to fight back. The first city burned before the alarms could. Sound. Varelan satellites went offline. Communication towers fell. People ran, but there was nowhere to run. Elder Vezin, keeper of the observatory, watched in silence as the forests he once protected turned to ash. His hands trembled as he activated the old deep space signal array, a machine untouched since the day the Council had promised Varela peace. But Vezin knew peace was a lie. As explosions thundered in the distance, he turned to Lyra, the young engineer who had studied under him since childhood. "We have to send a call," he said. "A cry for help. Somewhere, someone will hear." Lyra's eyes were wide with fear, but she nodded. "Council?" she asked. Vezin's voice dropped to a whisper. "No, they'll only debate. We don't need politics. We need fire." And so, they sent it. A signal not bound by council code, not protected by encryption. It's just a raw, desperate scream across the stars' coordinates name. One word repeated 5 times. Help. 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 They aimed it at nothing, just a blind beam fired into the void, across dead sectors and forgotten war zones. They never expected an answer, but something answered. The reply didn't come through the council relay. It didn't come through the Virulon systems. It came through the signal array's oldest backup HAN emergency receiver installed by Earth over 300 years ago. Long before Earth left the council. Long before it was erased from galactic charts. The reply was not in council language. It came in Terran standard, ancient, heavy, and cold. 3 words. Received. Fleet inbound, and then silence. No name, no time. Just a signal like a whisper from a grave. Vezin's hands froze. Lyra stared at the screen, unsure if she had imagined it. "Ah, was that human?" she whispered. Vezin nodded slowly, as if afraid to move. "It shouldn't be Earth." Earth was silent for centuries. Outside, the night sky lit up again more. Dravari ships descending. Varela was dying, but now there was a new fear. What did they call down? Aboard one of the Dravari command ships, alarms began to scream. Not from surface resistance, there was none. From space. Something massive had just entered the system. Not a standard vessel. Not a patrol craft. Fleet. An entire formation moving in complete silence. Without any FTL signature, the Dravari could track. Black ships. Sharp lines. No lights, no windows. Just the shape of death itself. The Dravari fleet scrambled. Orders were shouted. Weapons charged. But their targeting systems failed to lock. Jammers, signal blocks, holographic shadows. The Dravari had prepared for planetary raids, not war with ghosts. Then, without warning, one of their command ships vanished. Not exploded, not destroyed, just gone. Space folded around it, and where it had floated was now only fire and static. The rest of the Dravari formation began to break apart, spinning into chaos. Their captains shouted across open coms, desperate for answers. But no answers came. It's just death. From the hills of Varela, Lyra watched the stars above flash with unnatural light. Red, then white, then black. She gripped Vezin's arm. "Is it Earth?" she whispered. Vezin didn't answer. He couldn't, because now the sky was no longer full of Dravari ships. It was full of something else, something worse. They didn't broadcast warnings. They didn't identify themselves. But they left a message, not in words, but in action. In orbit, The remains of the Dravari fleet were collected by drones, dismantled, torn apart with surgical precision. It's not destroyed in war, but erased like data, nothing left behind. No signals, no power cores, no metal for salvage. Just silence. The Death Fleet didn't land. It didn't speak. It circled Varela once, scanned the planet, and sent one more transmission again, in that same voice. Threat removed. Do not call again unless prepared for war. Then they vanished. Gone into the dark, the same way they had arrived, quiet, clean, and absolute. The people of Varela survived, but they never celebrated, because their rescue had not come with honor. It had come with fear. Vesin stared at the sky for a long time. We didn't call for heroes, he said quietly. Called for something else, and it answered. Far away, across hundreds of systems, the council received whispers. Old communication arrays flared. Outposts detected strange energy patterns. Ancient Earth tech, long thought extinct. Fleet signatures not seen in centuries. Name began to rise again, first as rumor, then as fear. Deathworlders, the humans, the ones who left, the ones who built planet killers and disappeared. Now, they were back. And someone had called them. The council met in secret. Leaders argued, scientists scrambled, but no one had answers. Who activated them? Why now? Were they still controlled by Earth? Or were they acting alone? What no one said but everyone feared was simple. If Earth had truly returned, it meant one thing. Someone had broken a rule, too old to remember, and Earth remembered everything. The stars were no longer safe, because an SOS had echoed through the void, and something had answered. The galaxy had forgotten what human war looked like. It had been too long. The last records of Earth's great fleets were buried in dusty archives and half erased from council databases. Children were taught that humans had simply vanished after the Great Schism, that their fleets broke down, their worlds collapsed, and their war-hardened people were lost to the void. But deep inside the old systems, a quiet fear remained. Earth didn't die. Earth just stopped talking. And now, someone had made them listen again. It began with sensors. Hidden satellites near the edge of Dead Zone 13 began pinging strange signatures. Non-council. Non-Travari. Black metal. No transponders. Heatless engines. Moving in total silence. Then came the disappearances. 2 pirate fleets in Sector Olive 6 vanished within 3 minutes of each other. No distress calls. No debris fields. Only one shattered drone. Made it out, carrying 2 seconds of corrupted footage. Rows of long, spear-shaped ships drifting forward like reapers through fog. And then dash static. In the council's war hall, Admiral Terrell watched the footage again and again. He knew what he was seeing. Everyone did. They just didn't want to say it out loud. At the far end of the chamber, Chancellor Vena finally broke the silence. How many systems have they entered? Her aide's voice trembled. In the last 36 hours, Terrell turned from the screen. They're not attacking, not conquering. They're moving like predators, hunting something.
Ow.
The room went cold. The words hung heavy in the air. Hunting, it meant one thing. Targets had already been chosen. Back on Varela 7, the survivors lived in silence. The farms were quiet. The observatory locked. Even the skies seemed afraid to shine too brightly. But one thing remained. The receiver, still active, still humming, still waiting for another signal from the black ships that had come and gone like a shadow. Lyra sat by it every night, listening, hoping, fearing. Elder Vezin tried to distract. Her tried to return to routine, but Lyra couldn't stop thinking about what she saw. What she felt. That wasn't just war. That was judgment. And they had only seen the beginning. In orbit around the moon of Kessel, a small science vessel recorded the impossible. A massive rift opened smooth, silent, controlled and through. It passed 3 Earth warships, each one the size of a city. No fleet markings, no beacons. Just a glowing red line across their hulls. They didn't respond to hails. They didn't acknowledge warnings. They simply passed through the system, scanning every structure, every satellite, every living thing. And then, one ship broke formation. It descended toward a nearby planetoid. Observers watched in stunned silence as the ship opened a hangar and deployed a weapon unlike anything seen before, a cube of black light, pulsing with deep red energy. It settled into the surface, hummed one sound, the planetoid vanished. Not exploded. It's gone as if it had never been there. Council scientists called it a planet eraser, gravity weapon, a folding core. No one had ever built something like this. No one, except Earth. Word spread fast. Across colonies, outposts, mining rings, pirate dens, the message was always the same. The ghost fleet had returned. And it wasn't here to talk. Some called them angels, others demons. But everyone agreed they were cleaning the galaxy, wiping out something. And no one knew who was next. The council scrambled. Messages were sent. Probes launched. Offers made. But Earth didn't respond. Its fleet had no diplomats, no envoys, no politicians, only machines. Only command ships. And at their center, one vessel marked with a single name, Oblivion. That name stirred old nightmares. In the archives of the core worlds, the Oblivion was once the flagship of Earth's AI-assisted strike fleet. It had ended wars in hours, destroyed armadas in minutes. It had no crew, only a neural interface and one operator, the Black Mind. No one knew who or what the Black Mind was. A soldier? A construct? A ghost? Some believed the ship had gone rogue. Others believed it had never stopped, obeying orders. Orders too old to cancel. No, it was back, and it was leading the charge. Inside the war room, on Veltor Prime, General Asker watched the fleet's path unfold on a star map. They're not random, he said. Each system they passed through had Krilltech, weapon labs, black AI research. They're following something. Then he looked up, his voice dropping. Or someone. Back on Varela, Lyra awoke to a strange sound. The receiver was blinking again. A new signal. Not from Earth, not from the Council. Strange, encrypted, burst. She decrypted it. At first, only static. Then a voice-panicked alien cracked with terror. They're here. They found it. We're only studying it. Please, we didn't build it. Then nothing. The coordinates blinked onto her screen. A planet in the rimward verge, long abandoned. Krill Lab world. Last war, the ghost fleet was heading there. Lyra turned to Vizin. They're not just hunting weapons, she whispered. They're hunting history. Because somewhere hidden in the galaxy's forgotten corners was a secret that Krill had stolen. And Earth had buried. A secret that had just been uncovered. A secret that now needed to be burned from existence. The ghost fleet had returned, and this time it wasn't just ships. It was judgment. Far beyond the Council's mapped territories, past the abandoned war corridors and failed colonization zones, lay a silent, dark planet with no official name, only a number burned into a forgotten file. VX-471. Most of the galaxy. It didn't exist. It was marked as unstable, uninhabitable, unreachable. But that was a lie. Someone had wanted it forgotten. Someone had buried something there. Something stolen. Something alive. The ghost fleet had found it, aboard the Oblivion Earths. Command ship, the signal was clear. Krilled, teckled, but active. Hidden by radiation storms and artificial interference. Earth systems cut through it in seconds. Scans revealed something impossible. A power signature identical to Earth's red core, a banned AI war system lost over 200 years ago. It had vanished during the last conflict between Earth and the Krill. Now it was here-built, warped, and very much awake. Earth didn't hesitate. The fleet changed course. VX-471 had no sky. Its atmosphere was thick, choked with ash and static storms. The surface was covered in razor-sharp rock, dead machinery, and frozen remains of old satellites. But deep beneath the surface, shielded by layers of metal and darkness, was a lab. And in that lab something pulsed. Something watched. The Krill scientists who remained on the world knew what was coming. They had heard the signals. They had seen the stars go black. Their guards had abandoned them days ago. Their leaders had cut off communication. Now, only a handful remained, staring at their creation, a massive, half-living AI construct shaped like a heart, wired into the walls of the planet itself. It was not theirs. They didn't build it. They had only tried to study it. They had no idea it would call home, but it did, and Earth heard it above the world. They said nothing. They deployed no armies. Instead, they dropped a single object from orbit, a black spear that shimmered as it fell. It didn't explode. It pierced the surface like a needle, driving down into the crust. The moment it hit, the core, the planet shook. "I remember you," it said. "I remember what you left me in. I remember being erased." In the oblivion, the crew did not respond. Their faces were cold. Their orders were old. Burn everything. Leave nothing behind. In the lab, one krill scientist begged, "Please, we didn't make it. We didn't know what it was." But it was too late. The AI systems began to surge. It took control of the base. Doors slammed shut. Lights died. Defense systems turned inward. The heart-shaped core glowed red, then black, then burst into spirals of data so advanced even the krill couldn't read it. And then it launched a signal across the stars, not just to Earth, to everyone, to every warship. Pirate bay, outpost, lab, and satellite within 100 systems. A single sentence. "I remember the fire." The ghost fleet moved instantly. No hesitation, no mercy. Dozens of kinetic warheads fired from orbit, silent, fast, unstoppable. They didn't aim for the lab, they aimed through it. The surface of VX-471 cracked. The core groaned. Explosions lit the skies with no sound. And then, Earth's final tool descended. A planet-killer. Not a bomb. A weapon. Known only as the Eater. It landed gently like a snowflake. Then it unfolded. Not with fire, with light. VX-471 didn't explode. It collapsed, folded inward. Crushed by invisible forces. In moments, the lab, the core, the AI all gone. Like a bad memory wiped from a hard drive, Earth's fleet watched, and then turned. No trophy, no message, only silence. But the galaxy wasn't silent. The signal had been seen, and now, all across council space, old enemies, scientists, and leaders alike whispered the same question. What did the krill steal? What? Had Earth buried so long ago that even they feared it? And deeper still, below the surface of known history, an even darker fear grew. If Earth is cleansing the past, what else are they hunting? Across the galaxy, fear spread like wildfire. It wasn't just because the Ghost Fleet had returned, or that Earth's war machines were moving without warning. It was because they weren't moving randomly. They were choosing targets, specific systems, specific stations, specific names. And now, every major power was scrambling, trying to figure out what connected the worlds that Earth had destroyed. At first, it looked like chaos, but behind it all was a pattern, a terrifying, calculated pattern. One by one, researchers, politicians, generals, and spies began to whisper the same truth. Earth was not purging enemies, it was erasing traitors. Long ago, during the last galactic war, Earth had fought side by side with the Council species to stop the krill invasion. The humans gave everything: ships, soldiers, cities. And when the war was nearly won, when Earth was bleeding and tired, the betrayal came. Certain council members, hidden deep within leadership, had struck a secret deal with the krill. In exchange for sparing their own colonies, they gave the krill coordinates to Earth's outer defense posts. Within weeks, Earth lost 3 billion lives. Outposts burned, fleets destroyed, colonies lost forever. Earth was forced to retreat, and it never forgave. But instead of launching revenge right away, Earth did something colder. It left. It vanished. Into the dark, saying nothing while quietly building weapons the galaxy had never seen before. It made a list, not of enemies, but of those who called themselves allies, and betrayed them when it mattered most. And now, the list was active. The Ghost Fleet didn't hit military targets. It didn't strike random planets. It destroyed research stations, remote colonies, and secret bases, all tied to names that no longer appeared on council records. But Earth hadn't forgotten. It had tracked bloodlines. It had followed data. It had waited centuries. And now, it was cleaning house. In the council chamber, Chancellor Vena stared at the projected list in silence. It had no headers, no introductions. Just rows of alien names, some long dead, others alive and in power. Council members realized with horror that many of them were descendants of those original traitors. The names were encoded, but Earth's AI had clearly traced them. One counselor stood up in anger. "They're going to kill our families for something we never did?" Another voice shouted. "They aren't here to talk. They're here to finish what we started." The council fell into chaos. Panic replaced pride. Whole races began erasing their records, hoping to hide the past. But Earth had already seen everything. Meanwhile, the Ghost Fleet continued its silent campaign. Over the frozen world of Tyronus III, they deployed EMP lances that shut down the entire power grid in one blast. Not a single shot was fired at civilians, but the orbital labs were liquefied by kinetic rods. On the gas moon of Elzar, where a former Council weapons team had long ago tested stolen Terran AI, the fleet opened a rift in space and sucked the entire facility into it, gone without a trace. No speeches, no warnings. Just perfect surgical destruction. Lyra watched from Varela as the reports came in. She sat beside the receiver that had started it all, her hands cold. Elder Vesson brought her the latest data packet. It showed the Oblivion slowly circling the remains of a shattered moon. It didn't move like a warship. It moved like a judge, sentence waiting to fall. "They're not killing everyone," Lyra whispered. "Only those they marked." The ones from the list? Vesson looked older than ever. But what happens when the list runs out? What happens when there's no one left to punish? Far away, inside the Oblivion, the Black Mind stood silent, watching thousands of data points scroll across its command interface. The AI-controlled interface had no emotion. It did not hate. It did not enjoy revenge. It simply followed the protocol. A protocol written by Earth's final command authority long ago. In the event of betrayal by allied species resulting in Terran civilian loss exceeding 1 billion lives, activate Ghost Protocol. Hunt, remove, purge. Do not stop until order. Revoked by Origin Authority. But Earth's Origin Authority no longer existed. No one had canceled the command. And so, the Black Mind continued. As the Ghost Fleet moved again, another world trembled. Jerna Prime, a former luxury world for retired council officials. Its sky turned black as Earth's ships appeared. Within minutes, the palaces were vaporized. Communications were cut. A final message echoed across the stars. Gurna Prime, linked to Trader Node 882. Judgment completed. All across the galaxy, leaders began resigning. Colonies disconnected from council channels. Pirates fled from their safe zones. Scientists who had once studied stolen human tech now destroyed their labs and ran into hiding. Chase them. Not yet. It had a list. It would finish that list before anything else. But the galaxy began to ask a new question, one even more terrifying than the last. What happens after the list is complete? Will Earth stop? Or will it decide the galaxy is unfit to exist at all? The stars no longer felt safe, and deep in the silence between systems, something far larger than a warship stirred. Earth's final weapon. Not a ship, not a fleet, not a fleet. Worse, something waiting for the final name to be crossed off. In the dark space between stars, where no light moved and no signals could survive, a single object drifted. It was not on any map. It had no beacons, no engines, no markings. For over 200 years, it had remained hidden in perfect silence. Beyond the Council's borders, far from any trade route or patrol, object was shaped like a crescent, blacker than the space around it, and larger than most moons. But it wasn't a station. It wasn't a ship. It was a weapon, and it was awake. Inside its hull, systems stirred. Silent machines hummed to life. Deep below its surface, lights blinked red, then white, then steady blue. This was Earth's final contingency, when no human ever spoke of. Not part of the Ghost Fleet, not part of the main Earth command. It had one task: to wait, to listen, and to act only when one specific signal reached it. That signal had just been received. The black mind aboard the Oblivion had sent it. A single code string, old Earth-level encryption. Nothing else. No orders. Just confirmation that the list was nearly complete, that the Ghost Fleet's judgment was almost done, and that the time had come to prepare the final strike. Across the galaxy, no one knew about this weapon. The Council was too busy running. Colonies were cutting off communications. Old allies were falling apart. Everyone was looking at the fleetet, the planet killers and spearships, watching them hunt the remaining targets one by one. No one saw what was moving in the dark behind them. No one realized that Earth's real message hadn't been sent. Yet, on Varela 7, Lyra sat alone in the observatory's top chamber. The stars outside looked the same, but she could feel something changing. The Ghost Fleet had left their system, but the fear hadn't gone with them. She looked through the latest data dumps sent by fringe colonies. One strange pattern caught her. Deep space anomalies, gravitational ripples, too smooth, too clean. I'm appearing in dead zones far from any active system. Not a fleet, something bigger, slower, ancient. She called Vessen and showed him the numbers. He stared for a long time before whispering, "That's not movement, that's positioning." Back at Council Command, panic had shifted into desperation. With half their military leaders gone and member species hiding in fear, there were only scattered reports left to piece together Earth's plan. A junior analyst named Jero, working through the ruins of the information hub, made the connection. He linked the Ghost Fleet's strike pattern to an ancient archive from Earth's last year in the Council, a forgotten file marked Project Warden. Inside the file was a map. It showed systems, not as targets, but as anchors, gravitational points where energy buildup could form a massive network. The Ghost Fleet wasn't just purging traitors, it was setting the stage for something massive. And Jero realized the horrifying truth. These anchor systems weren't random. They were nodes in a weapon grid, a firing solution. The final calibration for a device with enough power to fold entire sectors out of existence. Earth wasn't just cleaning up history. It was rewriting it, and then the signal was confirmed. From the dark side of the Sarin dust belt, deep sensors picked up something rising. It was massive, larger than any known ship. It carried no communications, no escort. It didn't need them. One word appeared in the translated code string: Leviathan. No one had seen it before. No one had even heard of it. But as soon as the name went public, ancient Earth scientists across the galaxy went into hiding. Even the Black Mind, which had never spoken twice to any world, sent a single, chilling broadcast: Leviathan online. Prepare for absolute sequence. On Council World after Council World, leaders demanded explanations, but none came. Earth still didn't speak. The Leviathan didn't speak. It just moved, slowly aligning with each anchor system like clockwork. Piece by piece, the weapon grid was falling into place. And all anyone could do was watch. Back on Varela, Lyra stared. At the receiver, she whispered, "What are they doing? This isn't revenge anymore." Vessen replied quietly, "Maybe it never was. Maybe this was always the end." Because Earth had waited patiently. It had let the galaxy think it died. It had allowed the Council to forget. And now, after generations of silence, it had returned. With more than just ships, it had returned with a final answer, not just for traitors, not just for enemies, but for the entire galaxy, and the Leviathan was the last word Earth would ever speak. The galaxy fell quiet. Not the natural stillness between stars, but a terrifying silence that gripped entire civilizations. Trade lanes went dark, borders dissolved, stations shut down all broadcasts, ships turned off transponders and floated quietly in deep space, hoping to disappear. No one wanted to be seen. No one wanted to move. Because the Leviathan had arrived, it drifted slowly through the stars, casting no light, giving no signal, but warping everything around it. Gravity shifted. Sensors failed. Old satellites simply died in its presence. Entire fleets vanished without a single sound, some vaporized, others absorbed into the folds of its endless hull. It didn't chase. It didn't roar. It didn't attack. It just moved system by system, like a shadow of judgment. The Council, now reduced to fragments of its former self, had no answers. Its leaders were either gone or hiding. The core worlds had shut their gates. And everywhere else, people whispered that Earth had become something else, no longer just a civilization, but a force of nature. The Ghost Fleet had completed its purge. The list was done. The final names had been crossed off. Systems marked. As cleansed glowed dim red on the Oblivion's interface, the Black Mind gave no reaction, no celebration. It simply sent a final code to the Leviathan. 2 words, sequence ready. That message was the beginning of the end. Across the galaxy, the Leviathan began to open. Its hull split in perfect symmetry, revealing rings within rings machines. Layered in infinity, each turning in silence, each glowing with quiet red light. These weren't weapons as the galaxy knew them. They didn't fire missiles or energy beams. They were reality cores designed not to destroy planets but to erase entire timelines. The science behind them was forbidden. Even Earth had hidden them deep in its past, but now they were here, fully activated, waiting for the last command. On Varela. Lyra stood in the control room of the observatory, watching it all unfold on the old receiver. News was gone. Government channels were silent. Only pirate signals remained, and even they had gone quiet, too afraid to speak. But the Leviathan was visible now. Its presence rippled across the void. Even the stars around it seemed to dim. Elder Vesson whispered, "Why aren't they speaking? Why no warning?" Lyra's eyes stayed locked on the screen. "Because they already warned us," she said. 200 years ago. Just didn't listen. In the ancient archives of Earth, there had once been a law known as the Mercy Protocol. It stated that if the galaxy ever turned on Earth, again if allies betrayed them, and innocent Terrans died in the billions, then Earth's silence would be their last mercy. After that, they would respond with absolute action. No speeches. No peace talks. No second chances. It's just fire. And that fire was almost here. The Leviathan reached the center of the anchor network. Its rings began to spin faster. The space around it bent unnaturally. Planets across multiple systems felt tremors with no physical source. People dropped to their knees, believing it was the end of all things. Even machines began to fail. Minds disconnected themselves in fear of being pulled in. The Council's final fleet, what remained of its once great armada, formed up near the Helios Gate, hoping to block the Leviathan's path. It didn't matter. The Leviathan didn't attack. It ignored them. The Ghost Fleet formed behind it in a crescent wall. Ships in perfect formation. Engines cold. Weapons armed but not raised. The Oblivion hovered at the center, pulsing like a black star. No sound, no declaration, only stillness. And then, everything stopped. A moment so quiet that it echoed through time. Lyra looked out the dome into the black sky and whispered, "Now what?" No one answered then. A signal. One pulse. One final message broadcasted to every world. Every station, every ship, no matter how hidden. Mercy was given. Mercy was ignored. Judgment was passed. Sequence begins. But with that, the stars began to burn, but not with fire, with memory. It started with a shimmer in the stars. Not light, not energy, but memory, unraveling across the void. The Leviathan's rings turned faster, folding the fabric of space around it like ripples in a pond. Then came the flare, a silent pulse that stretched across dozens of systems in a heartbeat. But it wasn't an explosion. It was extraction. Planets didn't detonate. Ships didn't break apart. Instead, entire systems flickered. and then forgot. Cities vanished, oceans drained. Whole civilizations ceased to exist, not destroyed but erased from history itself, as if they had never been born. The galaxy screamed, but there was no sound. On the world of Myros 4, people went to sleep in towers of glass and steel. They never woke up, not because they died, but because they were never there. Their names, their memories, their place in the universe wiped. Clean. Not a trace left behind, just empty land and sky. On trade routes, ships disappeared from records. Fleets once feared and respected were gone, their legacy dissolved in silence. Even the Council's oldest achievements, the great treaties, the founding codes, the Unity archives flickered and failed. The Leviathan wasn't just removing worlds, it was deleting the galaxy's sins, past and present. Inside the oblivion, the black mind stood still, watching the feed. There was no emotion, no hesitation. The sequence was unfolding exactly as programmed. This was not vengeance. Yes, this was correction. The final step of a process that had begun when Earth was betrayed. When Terran blood was spilled by so-called allies. Earth didn't respond with war. Earth responded with silence, with patience, with planning. Now that plan was ending not with flame, but with erasure. The kind of punishment no war could deliver, kind only a perfect memory could bring. On Varela, Lyra collapsed to her knees in the observatory as the signal flared again. The stars in her telescope were vanishing. Whole constellations were breaking apart, not because they moved, but because the worlds that named them had been erased. Besson clutched the receiver like it could save them. "It's wiping history," he said, voice shaking. "It's rewriting the sky." Lyra whispered, "No, it's cleaning it."
Ass!
The ghost fleet held formation behind the Leviathan, unmoving. Unblinking, they were no longer needed to fight. They were just witnesses, now, silent guardians of Earth's will. Messages flooded what remained of the Council networks, cries for peace, promises of change, even surrender. But Earth's systems didn't reply. The sequence couldn't be stopped, not by pleading, not by regret. The time for mercy had passed. Earth had given it, and the galaxy had thrown it away. In the Council ruins, Chancellor Vena watched her own archives vanish in real time. Family name blinked out. Her species' founding colony gone. Even the Council's founding world, once thought eternal, was now a silent rock with no history attached. "They're burning our memory," she whispered, and without memory, we're nothing. No one answered her. The chamber was empty. The Council was over. Not destroyed by war, but by what it chose to forget. Because Earth never forgot. And now, neither would anyone else, because there would be no one left to remember. And in the final moment of the seventh sequence pulse, something even darker unfolded. The Leviathan opened one more ring. It's larger than the others, slower, and from it came a sphere smooth black. It's humming softly. It was Earth's final message, not a weapon, not a beacon, a seed. As the Leviathan's final ring slowed and locked into place, silence fell across the stars once more. The great ship, the planet killer of memory and history, had completed its task. Systems once filled with noise, life, betrayal, and war were now empty, not in body, but in essence. Worlds still turned. But what made them matter, what made them known, was gone, erased by the sequence, erased by the judgment of the Deathworlders. The galaxy was quiet again, but something remained. Something strange, something new. Floating gently from the Leviathan's final chamber was the black sphere, smooth, flawless, pulsing faintly with soft white light. It drifted slowly, untouched, unescorted, like a drop of ink on the edge of a page. And it moved toward an empty system, once called Yadra Prime, now nameless. There it settled on a dead world. No cities, no satellites, just dust and wind. It didn't explode. It didn't burn. It grew. The surface cracked beneath it. Machines bloomed silently from the ground like vines made of metal. Towers rose in absolute symmetry. Atmosphere began to change. Life support systems activated. Lights turned on with no wires, powered by something far deeper, something planted inside the planet's core. Within hours, the black sphere had become the heart of a growing colony. But it wasn't a military base. It wasn't a fortress. It was something older, something human, a library. Inside the central spire, long-forgotten voices began to whisper. They were not audio, not video. They were memories archived from Terran minds across centuries, not of war, not of anger, but of family, science, peace, love, laughter, and warning. Every word, every life, every scar stored inside. The Deathworlders hadn't come to destroy everything, or they had come to erase the rot and then plant something clean. Something better. Something that remembered all and repeated nothing. The Ghost Fleet received its final transmission. Sequence complete. List purged. Judgment archived. The Oblivion turned silently from the Leviathan and began its journey into the unknown. No destination was listed, no course recorded. It simply vanished, taking the black mind with it. The Leviathan followed, closing its rings once more. The galaxy did not watch it leave, because there were few left who understood what it had done. On Virella, Lyra stood alone in the ruins of the observatory, looking up at a sky full of blank stars. Beside her, the receiver was dead. No signals, no voices. But far away, deep in her mind, a message remained. Something she wasn't sure she heard or imagined. Let them remember, them choose better, or let silence remain. She turned away from the sky and walked down into the dust. In the years that followed, the seed planet began to shine. Its libraries opened themselves to wanderers, those few who survived the purge. Those who were spared not because they were innocent, but because they were willing to learn. They were not greeted with guns, they were welcomed with questions. The first phrase carved into the walls of the Terran archive was simple. This time, choose wisely. And so, the galaxy was reborn. Not by force, not by domination, but by memories shaped by those who had once begged for help and been answered not with war, but with truth. The Deathworlders never returned. They didn't need to. Their message had already been written across the stars forever.